John Spranda with ABJ Fire Protection. I'm here with Dan Bauer with SERVPRO, and we're here today to talk to you a little bit about emergency preparedness, fire protection, and how we can mitigate damage through emergency preparedness.
Yeah, because here's the thing, people. Most catastrophes do not need to be as bad or as damaging as they are. In fact, FEMA came out with a statistic: about 50% of businesses that suffer any sort of disaster never reopen. And the remaining 50% had a plan in place to deal with what happened.
Which is what fascinated me about your proposal that you had put out there for building owners and managers to work in developing a preparedness plan. And having had some experience with that, I thought, let's partner up and let's show people what's involved with the work that we do.
Yeah.
There's one story that comes to mind. We were installing a fire sprinkler system in a multi-story building, and just prior to opening, we had the system in service, and a fire occurred on the second floor that was intentionally lit. The sprinklers, actually it was one sprinkler, was able to extinguish the fire and really made a big impact on the outcome. The challenge that was faced with that particular situation was the fire responding units were not aware of what valve to close in order to mitigate the amount of water that was discharged. Had they made a different decision on what valve to close, there would have been a lot less water damage. But nevertheless, the fire was contained and extinguished. So I think that's really what fascinated me about the opportunity to work with you on presenting this information for building owners and managers.
Sure. So nothing we're going to talk about today is rocket science. Everything here is designed so that every single member of your organization could take it and use it in case of disaster.
In the fire service, we say that we prepare for the worst day of someone's life. And we're here to help you to mitigate that in the event that something does occur.
Sure.
What do you say?
I say let's get going. You're going to see a lot of information today. I hope you take notes. You'll get to see me in a wig. I hope you take pictures. Let's have a good time.
I'm with Michelle Messina, Director of Property Management with TM Montante Development. Hi Michelle, what are we here for today?
Hi John. Welcome to 616 Niagara Street. We are located in the heart of Niagara Falls, and we're here today to talk about fire safety and emergency preparedness. This building and project was originally constructed in 1908. We combined 20th century buildings into about 30,000 square feet of commercial and residential space. We have approximately 17 residential units and Niagara Global Tourism Institute as our commercial tenant. We want to welcome you, and we hope you enjoy this video in learning emergency preparedness.
So I'm here in an apartment, and we're going to look at some of the features that are designed for fire protection. But it's important to remember fires are preventable, and that's the best solution, is prevention. So we have fire sprinklers, and we have the devices that notify us when those sprinklers are activated. Let's take a look at some of the common causes.
Now, cooking is the #1 cause of preventable home fires. And you can see our friend here making huge mistakes left and right. Kind of a dummy. You should not cook when you're tired, if it's the middle of the night, if you just got home from a late night. Be careful. You should also not cook while you're drinking, and especially if you've been drinking more than 1 or 2 glasses of wine, because your attention is going to be split, to say the least. In the event of a grease fire, your first instinct is going to be to get some water to put the fire out. Do not do this. You may just cause grease to splatter, you may cause this fire to spread. Instead of that, cover the fire with a pan, starve it from oxygen, it will go out on its own. You can also use baking soda in some occasions. That said, if that fire becomes too much to handle, if you start to get worried for your own safety, just get out. Call 911 from outside the apartment, from a neighbor's house, whatever you have to do. Of course, in the winter, you need to keep your home warm, especially in Buffalo. But heating elements, like fireplaces or space heaters, can be major causes of residential and commercial fires. You should keep anything that can burn at least 3 feet away from that heating source. You should also turn the heater off when you're leaving the room or if you're going to sleep. I know everybody likes to go to bed toasty, but it's not safe. Electrical fires are also all too common. They can be avoided with a bit of common sense. You should only plug in one heat-producing appliance at a time. For major appliances like refrigerators, plug those directly into outlets. Don't use extension cords or power strips. Finally, use light bulbs with the right number of watts. Those watts are listed on the sticker on the side in most cases. Smoking is less common than it used to be, but it's still a major cause of preventable fires. In fact, according to the National Fire Protection Association, over 17,000 home fires per year were caused by smoking. Store cigarettes and lighters high up or in locked cabinets so children cannot access them. Finally, put out your cigarette in a deep, sturdy ashtray when you're done. Make sure it's away from anything that could burn. Candles can be a major cause of home fires, causing over 7,000 fires per year, especially over the holidays. You should also ensure that candles are at least 1 foot away from anything that could possibly burn. Finally, blow your candles out before you leave the room or go to bed. Everybody likes a bit of ambiance, but it's not safe.
It's important to remember that fires are preventable, so long as you know the risks. Still, it's important to be prepared for the worst case scenario. So let's take a look at developing an emergency response plan.
Now, many disasters can be prevented, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't plan in case something does happen. So in this section, we're going to talk about emergency ready planning. Now, emergency ready planning helps you to make a lot of decisions before anything happens, so that if a disaster does occur, you're going to be ready to react quickly, intelligently, and save yourself a ton of time, money, and headaches. First things first, you got to figure out how you're actually going to store your plan. Now, for most people, it makes sense to have many printed copies of their plan available throughout their property. You can put them in nice, conspicuous places like this fancy little SERVPRO pad folio, or, and I recommend this, you can also store them online. Digital copies, especially on the cloud, can be accessed by anyone, anywhere. So if you or your facilities manager or your wife or your best friend or whoever is on vacation in Aruba, they're still going to be able to get the information they need to respond in case of fire, water, or really any kind of disaster. The first thing that you'll collect for your emergency ready plan is the basics. Who is the main contact, the main stakeholder at your building? Are there several? What's their contact information? What's the address? Take some pictures of the exterior as well, and give first responders details on how they should access the building and where they should park. After that, it's important to collect some other details about how a first responder might have to go about their job. What year was the building built and last renovated? Who are the tenants? What's the square footage? How many floors are there? Is there a generator? Are there blueprints? Things like that. Anything that you would want a firefighter, police officer, a paramedic, or emergency responder to be aware of. It's important to note all building access points, especially in case some were blocked by the disaster. You should also detail how that access is controlled. Is there a key, a fob, a code? Who has access to those? You should also detail all stairwells and elevators. This is helpful for both emergency egress and for loading in any equipment that first responders might need. It's also important to note the locations of all of your utilities and their shutoffs. First, note your electricity shutoffs and breaker panel locations. These could be useful, especially if using high draw equipment in emergency response. Knowing how to operate your sprinkler systems is a huge plus in case of emergency. On the very slight chance that these systems operate accidentally, you're going to need to shut them off quickly. But more likely, they're going to operate in case of emergency. And knowing how to shut these off and shut them off selectively is very important to preventing any further water damage than what's needed to extinguish the fire. You should also note the location and shutoffs for various alarm systems. Documenting how and where to access this not only allows you to turn these systems off and on, but it makes it easy for necessary parties to access them during and after an emergency. You should also note where your modems, servers, and any other IT equipment is located in your building. Last, but certainly not least, you should write down all emergency contacts as well as the chain of command that you'll need to follow in case of emergency. Who's allowed to make decisions? Who should be contacted if an emergency takes place? Which vendors do you trust to call in? Documenting everything from your preferred plumber to your insurance carrier is vital. We're not going to go through everyone here, but we can send you a copy of that list. Alright, so we covered the basics of emergency ready planning, but it's important for you to know every plan should be customized for what you, your employees, the janitor you hired last Tuesday, whoever, needs to know in case of an emergency. So don't be afraid to get a little creative with it. If you need a hand getting started, call me at SERVPRO. We do these every day. I would be happy to help you out, show you examples, whatever. Now we're going to talk about fire prevention. So if a fire actually happens, what happens next? How do the systems in your building react to keep you safe? John's going to go into a little bit more detail about that.
So we're in the basement of the facility where the water service enters. Now the water service provides water to the domestic facilities, your toilets, your showers, your sinks, your water fountains, and it also separates to provide water for your fire protection system. Now your fire protection system is piped throughout the building to individual sprinkler heads located in all areas of the building. These sprinklers are individually activated through a frangible bulb in this particular case that's designed to discharge when the temperature reaches 155 degrees. So not all of the sprinklers go off at the same time, only the ones that are exposed to that particular temperature. So contrary to popular belief or the movies, only one sprinkler head is usually what it takes to put out a fire. Now where we have the water service entering, we have a device that's called a backflow preventer. The backflow preventer prevents any contaminants from entering into the public water supply. And the fire department or the fire sprinkler system also has a double check backflow preventer. Now, why is it important to know those features and those facilities? Well, you have to distinguish where is the water coming from. Is it from the domestic service or is it from the fire sprinklers? The fire sprinkler system has a device installed on it called a flow switch. This is a water flow switch that activates within 60 seconds when water is discharging from one of these sprinkler heads. So not only does the fire department know within 60 seconds that a fire has occurred, but there's also water discharging, and then the tenants throughout the facility will also know when the alarms go off, it's time to leave. So the difference between the fire system, one of the differences, and a domestic water system is if there is to be a failure of the piping, say it would freeze and break, there's really no way to indicate that that water is flowing. So it's important to know what one of these valves you have to close in order to mitigate that water damage. And so one of the things that we can work with you on is identifying what particular case, what particular valve, and we can do that with each individual facility. So how do we test this fire sprinkler system? We don't discharge water inside the building, but what we do is we install a valve that simulates the water flow through one sprinkler head to ensure that that will activate the alarm system. So we install a valve, we test it, and then it flows for 40 to 60 seconds, and then it activates an alarm on the fire alarm panel. It'll send a signal to the central station. The fire department will be notified and respond units, and the audio-visual devices throughout the building will also be going off so you know that it's time to evacuate. The water service also provides water to the domestic services, your sinks, your showers, your water fountains, your toilet fixtures. And what we have is a control valve. We have a bypass. So that bypass will allow us to work on the meter. And then we have a meter that monitors how much water is used or consumed. And then we have a backflow preventer with separate control valves. The control valves on each side allow us to do any maintenance or repairs on that particular backflow preventer. On a domestic service, this backflow preventer is a little bit different than the one on the fire service. This one is a little bit more protective of the water supply. It's actually called a reduced pressure zone, or an RPZ, backflow preventer. Now, one of the differences between a fire service water supply and a domestic service water supply is that the device that's installed on the fire system, or a flow switch, will indicate that there's water flow within 60 seconds. If something were to occur on a domestic water service, there's no activation of any alarm or any device that would indicate that there's water flowing. So if for some reason the heaters failed and the pipe froze and it broke, you may not see that particular situation until someone sees water flowing out of a door or they look down into the basement and see 2 or 3 inches of water on the floor. So it's important that these systems and these devices are properly maintained on a regular basis. Backflows need to be inspected and checked once a year. So those are the type of services that my company provides, and we'd be happy to help if there's ever any need for repairs. In summary, one of the things that I want you to make sure you take away from this is that when an event occurs, it may become confusing to remember which valve you need to close. So it's important to establish that pre-plan, and that's what Dan and myself are here for. It's by taking those steps that we can help mitigate damage control and loss when an event occurs.
Here at SERVPRO, we help people on what's basically the worst day of their lives. Maybe they had a fire, maybe a water main broke, whatever. It's not good. So I like to say, we're not really in the restoration business, we're in the hero business. And I want to show you exactly what I mean by that. Disasters happen when you least expect them. So that's why we have dedicated dispatch personnel here to answer your phone calls 24/7, 365. Just like my friend Blaze here. On top of that, we also have something called a 148 response guarantee. That means within 1 hour of your call, even if it's 3 a.m. on Christmas, you're going to get a call back from our on-call staff scheduling a time to get out to you. If it's an emergency, within 4 hours, they will be on site to provide emergency mitigation services and stop the damage in its tracks. Within 8 hours, you're going to have a scope of work that both you and, if necessary, your insurance provider will be able to go over so you know exactly what you're dealing with. That's just one way that we make any disaster like it never even happened. The first step of any SERVPRO job is mitigation. How can we stop any further damage from occurring? That's why it really pays off to have an IICRC certified experienced technician, like our friend Stormy here, on site during your loss. They can really assess what can be restored, what needs to be replaced, and everything in between. How you doing, Stormy? Great job. After the mitigation process has taken place, the next step is usually drying everything out and eliminating any more moisture in the structure. This is really important. Any lingering moisture can cause structural damage as well as biohazards, including mold. Our buddy Blaze here is getting ready to load 100 of these air movers onto our vehicles for a large commercial fire. Hope you had your Wheaties this morning, bud. After the drying process starts, then it's time to start cleaning the structure itself. SERVPRO uses over 100 proprietary products along with specialized techniques to make your structure like your fire loss never even happened. Don't forget your fire star, Stormy. Even textiles that have been exposed to some really nasty fires can be cleaned nowadays thanks to our very new, very cool Asporta industrial grade washing system. This system, independent studies have shown, can clean up to 90% of the soft contents that previously used to have to be disposed of, even if they've been exposed to fire, smoke, soot, water, even biocontaminants. Not only can it clean them, it can get them up to food grade safe. How about that? Think you can throw in my mask there, buddy? One of the most vital things that SERVPRO does to make your loss like it never even happened, we get rid of the smoke smell. Deodorization is one of the most important services that we provide, and we have all sorts of specialized techniques and tools, like this ozone generator, to make it happen. Hey Stormy, let's make the world smell good again, right? After the restoration process ends, then it's time to rebuild. That's why we here at SERVPRO of The Southtowns have our very own full-time reconstruction team. Get out there and start building a better tomorrow, Blaze, huh? I hope walking through the warehouse here with you gives you a little bit of a better understanding of what we do here at SERVPRO of The Southtowns every single day. The restoration process, it's got a lot of moving parts, but what you really need to remember is we're not in the restoration business, we're in the hero business, and we're here for you to make it like it never even happened. Thanks everybody for watching. This was, I think, a lot of fun. We went over a lot of material today. None of it is super complex. It's something that every single person in your organization can take and run with today, which is important because putting the time today into preventing and mitigating catastrophes will hopefully, you'll never have to use that, but it will pay off if something does happen. John? It
is, true that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and we're here to help you prepare for a potential that may or may not happen, but when it does, if it does, you'll be able to respond efficiently and immediately.
Yep. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.